Hey babes, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brandy. I am the host of the Be Real Babe show, a spinoff of the Be Real Babe podcast. And today, you guys, it is time to keep up with Canada. And I have three different stories for you today. And none of them are great, but I think a lot of them stir a bunch of conversation that I think we need to have. And I am super curious about what your opinions on these topics. So today, we're going to be talking about some new legislation from the Department of Justice here in Canada um, as we introduce legislation to combat hate crimes, intimidation, and obstruction. I'm also going to be talking about a Canadian author here, which most people, I think most millennials will know him, Robert Munsch, and his choice of choosing maids, and just a conversation on that. And the third story today is going to be about an Irish band that has been. Um, Banned from entering Canada, which is now, it sounds like the second time that artists have come here that I've known about that have been told that they're not welcome here, despite, based on their message. And I'm just a little bit curious what everyone thinks. I don't know anything about this band or really the other one, but I wanted to bring this conversation up and have a chat with you guys about it to see what you think. So if you're interested in listening to that, stick around and we'll jump right in. All right, babe. So if you're tuning into this live, that means it is Monday. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend. Apologies. I didn't expect this series for me to just wear my hat every single time, but it is merch. So stay tuned for that in the coming months when we actually drop a store with some merch where you can get your own Be Real stuff. So not hurting to be able to come on here and show the hats every single time, but was really blessed with a beautiful day on the lake yesterday and about to teach cardio class this morning. So it did not make any sense to get ready. And I think that's mostly how I'm going to be able to show up to these episodes. So thank you guys for being here and in my cozy environment. And we're going to keep up with Canada today. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better than last time. So thank you guys for being patient as I change locations from being a podcaster over to YouTube because I really want to keep those separate. The podcast is on Fridays on Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. So you can listen to the amazing interviews over there. Just this last week, I had an amazing woman from Tasmania go over her breast implant illness, her explant, and her mastectomy due to the implants, which I think is a super important episode for you guys to listen to. And this coming Friday, we actually have another amazing episode with one of my fellow YouTubers and my girlfriend Jamie. She's going to come on and we're going to talk about politics and what it was like growing up here in Canada politically and kind of going from more liberal left to more of a conservative as we have aged in that journey and just what we see going forward and what we hope to see going forward. So if you guys want to listen to that, that is coming out this Friday. And then Wednesday, I have another internet insanity story for you guys with another, I don't want to say crazy, but up for debate, crazy person named Kendra. And the whole saga of that is going to be airing on Wednesdays. So now I've said all the things I have to say. Let's jump into today's story. So this one came across my feed on Friday, actually. And again, as most things, when legislature comes out and these things come out, I kind of get a little bit worried of what that means for the future. And, they say certain things like, we're doing this for the safety of, and then generally means that someone else's safety is sacrificed or more restrictions are coming out. And again, them deciding what, let's say, hate speech is or what's appropriate or what's not or what should be mandated, gets a little bit scary. I think we can feel that across the board. I don't think that's even a left or right thing. I think most people feel like the more the government gets involved with certain things, it can be a slippery slope. Is this one? I don't know. A lot of the time I've had faith in the past and then it's been totally removed from me. So I always want to leave these things hoping that this is positive, but being open to knowing that it could very well not be. And if you guys have any instances that you're worried about this topic, please let me know. But let's get into this. So this is directly from um, Canada.ca, like the government of Canada. Canada introduces legislation to combat hate crimes, intimidation, and obstruction. So this came out on the 19th out in Ottawa from the Department of Justice here in Canada. There's a horrifying rise in hate crimes in our communities, and Canada will not tolerate anyone being made to feel afraid because of who they are, how they worship, or where they gather. Rising anti Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, and transphobia have left too many people feeling unsafe in their own communities. I'm not saying that there aren't certain groups that are getting hate, but I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of people getting hate. I think over the last couple weeks, it's been amplified to see that it's not just certain groups um, we have to do talk about people who, like, Christianity has very much been attacked. A lot of other, I'm not saying that these individuals don't, but I think it's just fair to say this is where I worry about is like rising hate for these groups. Again, please don't say I'm taking this away, but I think you can kind of find any echo chamber out there as well that's going to hate anybody. Like there is this huge issue now that we have the internet that you can gather in mass people that validate and align with your views, which is, good in some senses when you're looking for community and all that, but it also can breed really dangerous things. And to just say that certain groups are facing it, I don't know that that's fair right now. I think there's a lot going on where there's hate across the board and it needs to stop. And I think this is where I struggle with the government getting involved, just saying these ones are the only ones that are rising. I don't believe that that's true. I feel like everybody in some sort of group can feel that way. But anyways, I digress. I'm sure I'll be told otherwise. To address this rise in hate, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada and Minister responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, the Honorable Sean Fraser, today announced the Combating Hate Act. This legislation would amend the Criminal Code to make it a crime to intimidate and obstruct people from accessing places of worship, as well as schools, community centers, and other places primarily used by an identifiable group, make hate motivated crimes a specific offense, ensuring conduct is more clearly denounced and that offenders are held accountable, and make it a crime to willfully promote hatred against an identifiable group by displaying certain terrorism or hate symbols in public. So again, on the outside, I feel like 100%. Like I feel like that shouldn't have to be an act. That should just be how we commend ourselves. And up until recently, that is how Canada would be. I don't remember this much hate crime. Now, is that because of social media? Is that be the manipulation that is on there and out in the media? Like, where is this stemming from, right? Everyone just says it's people to people. But if you actually go out in everyday life, I don't see this kind of hatred. So you have to ask yourself, and I constantly ask myself, one, is the amplified hatred online designed to keep you in the apps, keep you brought in, keep you hooked in, keep you speaking about it? I understand the irony here. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that there's not hateful people. I'm saying the amplifying amount of it is that by bot farms, is that by people that just want to make money and get views and all that by being this person online, right? People have really removed themselves from who they are online to real life. And I think sometimes they think, well, in real life, there's no consequences, but online, I could say whatever I want. Maybe there's some of that. But at the end of the day, I think if we start connecting with each other more in real life and start putting that human connection in, I think we're going to see that there's maybe a lot less hate and maybe just some mild disagreements on how people live their life. But for some reason, online with just sentences and clickbait and shortened clips and, you know, people that want to have a gotcha moment because they don't like you, so they clip things together. Like, is that reality or is that online? The shitty thing is now with everything that obviously happened with Charlie Kirk over when this publishes, it'll almost be 2 weeks ago. I think that's what kind of paused everybody to be like, okay, this is real life. Like we know it, but this is actually being taken to real life. So, what are we doing to disseminate the hate? Are these hate crime acts going to help? Because at the end of the day, this is obviously showing that the government's going to step in and in the extreme cases great, but then when they get to decide, that becomes scary, right? If you're someone that's was unvaccinated during the pandemic and you weren't allowed to fly somewhere, you weren't allowed to go to restaurants, you weren't allowed to go to the gym, you weren't allowed to go to church, you weren't allowed to use your freedom to move within this country because you didn't take a unknowing thing in your body that you didn't want to. You didn't have to be conspiracy theorists. You could have just been messed up by the medical world and that industry and have no trust. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't trust anything Bill Gates says personally. No offense. He's a computer dude. Um, right. So when we look back at that, I was deemed, I was deemed like a threat, if you will. So with this stuff that comes out, it makes me a little bit concerned, not because I don't want to protect those that are experiencing that, That's dumb. Of course I do. But I've seen the overreach time and time again. That's my concern. I think that's a valid concern. The proposed changes respect Canadians' charter freedoms of expression and peaceful assembly and would not unreasonably impact the freedom to protest or voice concerns peacefully. It targets criminal behavior that intimidates and obstructs access to community spaces, making it clear where the line is drawn. Okay, totally get that. Again, can I refer you back to the trucker protest, right back to when we were trying to speak our mind because of government overreach, not allowing a portion of Canadians to move freely and use services that we pay for. You know what I'm saying? So there's issues in that. So again, we come down here and we say, well, you already pulled the Emergencies Act when it was a peaceful protest. Now there have been protests since then that have not been peaceful and have had like crime, physical violence within those. Not massively, thank goodness, but a decent amount. But nothing was done there. No Emergency Act was pulled then. This is where my concerns start to happen if we look historically where they put in something that seems to be protecting us. Meanwhile, like tramples on one person's life or another. And even if it's not yours right now, can you understand where it could be yours one day? Let's say your political party doesn't get in and things change or whatever, and they change that. How would that feel? So we have to be coming together here, being like, shoe on the other foot. Would this feel good if it was something I was against and for? And that's what I said during the pandemic. You might be super pro vax, and that's amazing for you. And I'm so happy that that feels good to you. It doesn't feel good to me. At the time, it didn't. I'm not discrediting any medical procedures. I just believe in bodily autonomy and you get to decide for you. Because, with all due respect, whatever I take and the risks that I take in my body is not going to affect you. Maybe, specifically if I haven't, let's say something goes wrong and then I have to be on medical or long term disability, then it will affect you and it will affect your tax dollars. And I'm not saying for whatever you get from not getting it, you can't do it, but like you run the risks either way. And I wanted the choice of that. I wanted you to have the choice of that. And I wanted you to have informed consent. And I didn't feel like I had informed consent because no one could tell me the true risks of it because it hadn't been long enough. So I didn't feel like I had informed consent. Now, what if something comes down the road and it's something you like? What if it was the opposite and you were pro vax and they're like, no, you cannot take this. You cannot take it. It will be illegal for you to do it. We don't know if it's going to harm you or not, or if it's going to be beneficial. We don't know yet. We can't give you informed consent, but you certainly cannot take it. Nope, you're going to go to jail or you're going to be restricted. Sounds insane, but so did the other one. You know what I mean? And at some point, it could be something that is important to you or not important to you. And I just really want to bring that to your guys' attention when it comes to things like this. And when they say they protect our freedoms and charters, like, I think a lot of people don't feel that way. In addition, changes to the criminal code would codify a definition of hatred to clarify when conduct constitutes a hate crime. Finally, the law would streamline the process to lay hate propaganda and charge by removing the requirement to obtain the Attorney General's consent. By removing this step, law enforcement would be able to act quickly to counter hate speech and protect communities. A strong Canada means strong protections for our communities and a criminal code that responds to emerging threats, protects victims of crime, and keeps our kids safe. This is the next in series of crime and justice reform the government of Canada will bring forward in the weeks and months ahead to strengthen community safety and justice. So while I agree, again, and I'm not saying that people aren't being targeted. I know that they have data that supports the rise in that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if we just focus on cutting people's freedom of speech, whether like we need to have freedom of speech, but we need to have consequence in the society. We need to call it out. We need to work through it as citizens, is what I'm just kind of saying, because I think when the government starts to get involved and it gets to that level, and I'm not saying, yes, if you had huge riots, actual damage being done to citizens, I do think that the government should be stepping in. But I think when it comes to discourse, public hate, like we need to work together in teams to sort through that. I think the minute we throw it up to the government, that's when things get a little scary and it's a slippery slope is what I'm saying, right? There should be no hate towards anybody. We should be able to, as adults, as human beings, have discourse without absolutely vilifying one another, right? Like thoughts and words are not violence. We need to take that back. They lead to violence. They can incite violence, but we need to be careful when we're also using that rhetoric, okay? That's just my opinion. We're all working through what it's like to emotionally regulate shit when we're being fed news, opinions, thoughts, theories at an exorbitant amount of speed and an amount and speed, right? Like we're getting it more than we ever have. So I feel like most of us are struggling to emotionally regulate from one to another. We struggled when it was just on the news and TV. Now we have it in our fingertips the minute we wake up to when we go to sleep. It wasn't just news at 5. So I think we all have to come together and have a little bit of grace with one another to understand that how are we delivering messages and how are we conversing? Let's not always meet with the same energy. Let's try and come with calmer energy. Um, and being open to changing your thought process, having discourse and then being like, let's agree to disagree and maybe come back and, hey, I found something else towards this. And I see where you're coming from. That doesn't mean you like leech on to who they are as a person. That means you see them as a person and you see that they're valid and you just want to either defend your thought or look into theirs more and then you become a better person with more understanding. Like we can really open up and learn so much more from each other, but instead it's like sports teams where it's just like, oh, you're on one team and you're the other. We've taken this into politics and social justice things. And I think what happens is like you live in life and all of a sudden something happens to you and you see the injustice that's being done in that said topic or situation. So you rah for it. And obviously that makes sense. It's your experience. And then all of a sudden, maybe you get to the other side where you're like, okay, well, now we've given too much justice, let's say on this, and now it's actually hurting our people. Like it's great to send money to help other countries, but our country is very much hurting. So it's fair to say, hey, pause for a second. What do we need to do here and get back to a place where we can do those things, instead of just continually bleeding and not caring about our people and others, is for an example, right? And then I think you come to the side of the like business or reality of being like, well, we can't always do everything, but we got to come together to care about some things. How do we work together to get back to those things, right? Let's just say with like foreign affairs, right? Like obviously we want to help, but there's a bunch of us are like, hey, domestically people are struggling, but that doesn't mean we don't care about those other people, but you label it as such. Like can't a bunch of truths exist at the same time and we could just work on some things and then move over to work in another? Like that's what I feel like democracy and all that was supposed to be about. Like your problems, let's come together. What can we tackle together? Can we hit two birds with one stone? Like but instead now it's your side versus that side and it just gets so divisive. Let's just try to come together, guys. But this is great. I want to see true hate crimes being dealt with for sure at the extremes. But I think we can't again just leave everything to the power of the government. We need to come together and how are we working together to get better at that? You know what I mean? Okay, so next topic. Unfortunately, Robert Munsch has decided to get MAIDs. Just unfortunately, and I say that just because it's really sad that he's in this position. I have been very critical about MAIDs in the past, and while I remain still very skeptical at the length it's going, I also understand that it has brought a lot of peace for some individuals, and they feel like they get to decide how they end their story. And I struggle to tell people obviously what to do. But I'm also sad because I know that there has been some gross overstep there as well. But I think this story, I think people should look into this a little bit more. We might bring everybody a little bit more together in understanding both sides of the story, but coming together and just being a human and praying that this author that we're loved, especially if you're a millennial, gets to make that choice and his family gets to be around him. And I think again, this we need to open the conversation from both sides and understand that there could be overreach, but there's also a sense of beauty for some people being able to choose this. Author Robert Munsch is approved for MAID, but his daughter clarifies that he is not dying. So this is of September 16th. He was diagnosed with dementia in 2021 and has also received a Parkinson's diagnosis. He said it years ago that the stories will be the last to go. And now, prolific and iconic children's author Robert Munsch, beloved for his stories about a plucky princess named Elizabeth, about Mortimer's bedtime protest song, about a little boy whose mother will love him forever, is saying that though his stories will still remain with him, he is slowly slipping away. In an interview with the New York Times, Munch said that he has decided on a medically assisted dying also known as MAID here in Canada, after previously being diagnosed with dementia and Parkinson's. He applied and was approved shortly after his diagnosis, he had told the publication. But as a tribute to the author started pouring in, his daughter, Julie Munsch, hopped on social media Tuesday to clarify that her father is not dying. She thanked everyone for their well wishes, but in a post shared on the official Robert Munsch Facebook page, she emphasized that her father is still doing well and isn't going to die anytime soon. He made his choice to use MAID 5 years ago, she wrote, and added that people should be aware of clickbait, which is kind of what got me at first. And that's why I wanted to read this specific article, because I definitely got caught with clickbait and it seemed like he had made the decision, he was declining and he was going tomorrow. He decided this 5 years ago. He has two degenerative diseases. I think that he should be allowed to make that call and we should support it, as sad as it is. My father is not dying, she added. My dad is doing well, but of course, with a degenerative disease, it can progress quickly at any point. Which we know is true, right? So, like, having to be able to make this decision be approved and for him to be able to make that call before he goes into a decline, I think is a much better way, quote unquote, than some of the rapid quick for reasons that aren't reasons like this. While Munch 80 says he hasn't set a date, he told Times that he can't wait too much longer. Under Canadian law, the person receiving MAID must still have a decision making capacity. I have to pick the moment when I can still ask for it, Munch said. When I start having real trouble talking and communicating, then I'll know. Since publishing his first story, Mud Puddle, in 1979, the Guelph, Ontario writer has sold more than 80 million copies of his books in North America alone. His stories have been translated in 20 languages, including Arabic and Swedish. Among his many well-known books, some of the most popular include The Paper Bag Princess, 1980, Mortimer, 1983, Love You Forever, 1986, shout out 1986, Murrow, 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 1982, and many more. He has written over 75 books, all of them beloved. I grew up reading these stories. I probably had 20 to 30, or my grandmother did, of all these books. That's why I get it so, so sad. But I also want to respect a man that shaped my childhood and my creativity. In 2021, Munch told CBC Shayla Rogers that he had ongoing dementia. I can't drive, I can't ride a bicycle, I can't write. So it's been really whittling away on who I thought I was, he told CBC at the time. My stories, strangely enough, are all there. The stories will be the last thing to go, I think. In the New York Times profile, he shared that he was later diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and spoke candidly about the toll the disease had taken on him, as he hasn't written anything since 2023 when he penned Bounce, Munch told the Times. He's frail, which has isolated him from the children who inspire his work. He said he's worried that he'll turn it to a turnip in some time. I can feel it going further and further away, he said in a lengthy profile describing how he used to think and write. Um, so again, like, I know this is a big heated topic. I know I've been critical of the progression of this program, but I want to be very clear that I do believe, again, and I said this before, I think in nauseum, those that, have life-ending mental or physical illnesses, I completely understand when there's zero reversal, zero aid, and you're at your max again. It's your choice. I totally understand that. What my worry is doing that with minors, doing that with infants that are just born, and doing that for those with mental illnesses. That's degenerative diseases, illnesses, end of life. Completely understand making that choice. The other slippery slope, what they're trying to push, again, going back to the first story, slippery slopes, right? That's what I'm worried about. So, Robert Munch family, thank you so much for providing so much in my childhood, so much creativity for years to come. I hope you enjoy the last chapter of your story. I hope it's as beautiful and as long lasting as it possibly can be. And I'm really glad that we do have programs here that make people feel like this is what they need and can support that, whether you agree on it or not. Again, I believe in bodily autonomy and you having informed consent. So if you have informed consent, and that's good, I know that a lot of people have found the beauty in that. And I know death is hard, obviously, but I do believe it's up to them. So, but go have a look deeper. And, if you're around wanting to get any children's books, I highly suggest Robert Munch. Classic, classic. And then the final story for today, coming out of CTV News, a prominent Irish rap group, Kneecap, threatens legal action after being barred from entering Canada. So September 19th, 2025. Irish rap group Kneecap says it's initiating legal actions against Toronto MP Vince Gasparo, who said Canada would not allow them to enter the country. Early on Friday, Toronto MP Vince Gasparo, apologies, dude, revealed the federal government has deemed Kneecap ineligible to come to Canada. The trio was scheduled to perform 2 shows in Toronto and 2 in Vancouver in October. Our government will not tolerate the advocating of political violence, terrorism, or anti Semitism and hate broadly, Gasparo wrote on X on Friday. The group have amplified political violence and publicly displayed support for terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah and Hamas, said Gasparo, who serves as the parliamentary secretary to the Secretary of State for Combating Crime. Kneecap responded on Instagram with a letter addressed directly to Gasparo, calling his comments wholly untrue and deeply malicious. We have today instructed our lawyers to initiate illegal action against you. We will be relentless in defending ourselves against baseless accusations to silence our opposition to genocide being committed in Israel by Israel. Reads the letter. When we beat you in court, which we will donate every cent to assist the some thousand child amputees in Gaza. Canada, this is getting very confusing when and I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't know about this, just from the article I read. It says right at the top, breaking news, Canada officially recognized the state of Palestine, Carney said. So these guys are talking against that. And hey, maybe they are spewing, again, back to my point of what is anti-Semitism, what's not, what's hate speech, what's not, when you're trying to stand for it. Are they clipping stuff and making it look like it? I don't know. I don't know everything. I don't have time to absolutely absorb everything on the internet. Okay. But do you see where I'm saying? Is it? I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments. That's why I'm bringing this conversation. Do these guys, are they fully anti-Semite because they're just saying, hey, we don't love what's happening to the other country? Did they say they don't deserve to be alive? I don't know. Or are they saying, I don't like what's happening here? Those are two different things, and we really need to be aware of that when it comes to stuff like this. I'm not commenting. I'm just saying, what do you think? The Belfast-based group has frequently drawn headlines for its politically charged performances. Earlier this year, Britain's Home Office confirmed it was reviewing musical duo Bob Vylan for leading onstage chants to Death, Death to IDF during the Glastonbury Music Festival over the summer, while Kneecap led chants against UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and condemned Israel in front of a huge crowd. Again, I wasn't there. Saying death, death to somebody, okay, that one probably not great. I mean, again, what are the lines? What are we doing? Are we saying words? Are we inciting? Like, I don't know. But what do you guys think? Is that it? And when they're saying they're led chants against it and condemning war, I don't know. I don't know. Again, where's this slippery line? One person says yes, one person says the other. So when shoes are reversed, are we going to be mad about it? Like, where's the slippery slope? In August, they appeared in London court on a terrorism-related charge after prosecutors alleged she waved a Hezbollah flag during a concert. Fans surrounded the court in support while Kneecap rejected the allegations and said the case was part of a wider effort to silence their political messaging. And again, I don't know, I wasn't there, guys, and I know this is hard, but they also said that the Freedom Convoy had a bunch of Nazis, which was not true. In Friday letter, Kneecap wrote, no member of Kneecap has ever convicted of any crime in any country ever. In a separate statement to fans, the group said that the Canadian government had already issued electronic travel authorization, commonly known as ETAs, to its members. Canada's move follows a similar decision from Hungary earlier this summer. Authorities there argued the musicians' presence in the country would constitute a risk to national security. Jewish advocate group B'nai B'rith Canada thanked the federal government for its decision, which said it must serve as precedent. Again, guys, what do you think? I don't know about this group. Again, I know that there's been a lot of conversations about those groups being terrorists. And again, was somebody there within the crowd that's doing it? I don't know. I just feel like we have to have more conversation because immediately we stopping people coming for the country. Was them coming actually a threat to national security, or are they just saying that I don't know, like, I just wanna know what you guys think because again, I feel like it's just such a slippery slope, and if people are just using their speech and there's no actual violence, why can't we have those conversations now if they have called for violence, if they have displayed that, if they have started that, if they're having online discourse continually saying that, then I do think that's cause for concern to then maybe have more security, maybe check into them more. Is not allowing them coming to the country based on what you see either online, like, is there factual things that are showing what they have done? That's my question. Are we just going off of words? Are we just going off of some clips? Because we all know how dangerous that can be, and we've all seen that on display this month, right? So that's my question. I'm not saying yes or no or the other. I don't know enough about it. From what I'm seeing, I think this might be a little bit of an overreach because where does it stop from people? We've seen it. We didn't like it, on this side when they stopped. There was a Christian pastor, or I don't know the story as well, that came in and he was being told he can't go places. And we didn't like that. Again, is it just for speaking and coming and speaking against someone? Is that inciting violence? Is there actually violence? Is there rhetoric being built? I think we need to make those lines very clear again, because this is going to have a slippery slope. But that is just my opinion. Just Canadian Stone over here reading it's my algorithm and the news that I'm getting. But I'd really like to know what you guys think. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you've been here this far, I appreciate you guys so much for being here. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stick around to Wednesday when I come to you with a very insane story I found online. And then if you want to listen to the podcast this week, again on Friday, and we're having amazing conversation about going politically from left to right here in Canada and what that was like with my friend Jamie. So excited for that. But thanks again, guys, for sticking around, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, bye.